isn't fair. I just wanna let you know that I can really see a beautiful world for what it's worth. Yeah, it's a place where we can dance. Yeah, yeah. Let's live to love, 'cause life is lightning fast. As the world pirouettes just like a ballerina, I confess I still believe in romance as I crash land ever so gently right in the palm of your hand.
Hey, that was an interesting intro. A little bit loud. Good morning, Squabble.
Good morning.
Good morning, beautifully, Medic Mitchell. Hey, you guys made it. Thanks for being here. Good morning. We're going to be doing some C.S. Lewising today. A little bit of screw tape letters because I read these letters. Squabble sent me this amazing little book. It's the screw tape letters compiled into a book. And it's such a fantastic idea to do. Although Mr. Lewis said that when he did it, it took him to a very dark place, which makes sense because, well, let me just tell you what these are. So C.S. Lewis is an author. He wrote this particular book. It's the same one that we have on screen in the 40s.
He was British.
Yeah, he was British. Should I read the whole thing with the accent?
Beautifully probably knew him, yeah.
Dang, I gotta go reread the book with an accent because I did the whole thing wrong. So he was British, you're right. He said that this idea came to him while he was at church.
Anglican. He was Anglican.
Ooh.
Church of England. So
Church
he
of
was
England.
he was a good lad.
Yeah, I finally watched The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I watched it. And that's a C.S. Lewis. I didn't know that until I think last show I learned it.
What did you think of The Lion? Awesome.
I thought that it was really well done. I mean,
Is it the live action?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did think it was really well done.
I think they've done about three movies so far, I think, in the series. Maybe four, I don't remember.
Yeah, there's another one, Prince Caspian, I think, that's on. I think they were on Disney. So we're gonna get to those also, but
oh wow. So Disney does have something good, huh? Wow.
Yeah, I've binged all their good movies, and that seems to be one of them. But I think they made those a while ago. The girls, Beautifully and Vicky, they know the stories and they've seen them before and they're obsessed. So they come highly recommended. So he wrote these books not these books. He wrote these letters to a newspaper. It was like a religious newspaper at the time. It doesn't exist anymore, but he wrote them in every week. He would send a new letter in and they would publish them. And it said that, that he's not sure how many people unsubscribed or subscribed because of the letters to the paper, but there was one letter to the paper from like a pastor who couldn't handle that he was writing these letters. These letters are written from the perspective of like a top demon. His name is SCREWTAPE, writing to like junior demons.
His nephew.
Wormwood and Wormwood.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he calls him, uncle, nephew, and they call the person that the demons are attached to, they call them their patient. And so when you read it, they talk about the enemy, and the enemy to them is God, because this is written from the demon's perspective. So I kind of had to read it opposite. When it said the enemy, I would have to say God in my mind just to make it make sense to me. But yeah, it was really good. So I think when I got to the very end, there was a toast, and the toast just spoke to me. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to talk about this on the show. We're going to talk more about how I would say, and I said it in the description, like how prescient this book was. Like it was very This part, the toast was written in the late 50s, and I was like, "Damn, they're literally talking about where we're at right now." So, I'm not saying that this is at all real. It's letters written to, like, enlighten people about the human nature and things like that, but I see this as something that is and did happen, which makes sense because I think we talked a little bit, or maybe we didn't, but I think that if you pay attention to what these Satanists and these demonologists are telling, these ones that have been saved and brought, you know, over to this side, they'll tell you kind of what the enemy's tactics are. And I don't think it's smart to not listen to that, because I don't know. And unless you've been speaking to the devil, you really don't have access to what their plans are. They're not for good, but it's interesting to see how subtle it can be. And so that's why I wanted to talk about the screw tape letters. And I'm actually going to read, not all of it, but I'm going to read a bunch of the toast at the end. First, I wanted to read, though, one of the letters. Good morning, Miami. Long time no see. So I think I'll start with reading just a letter from them. It's the second letter. He doesn't like when they were compiled into a book. He's not sure if these were in order, but this one says it was published in May 1941. And this will just kind of give us an idea of how he's writing to his nephew or the younger demons.
And for those who may not be familiar, C.S. Lewis was great pals with J.R.R. Tolkien, who did the Lord of the Rings. They had a study group in England called the Inklings. So you had Lewis, Tolkien, George MacDonald. There were a couple other guys, Charles Williams, and I think a lady in there. But they would meet, at a pub and exchange, bits of what they were doing and critique each other. And it's really kind of fascinating. And it was actually J.R.R. Tolkien, who was Catholic all his life, who led C.S. Lewis to Christ. So,
Oh, Tolkien's a guy? I thought
yeah,
that was a girl for some reason.
nope, J.R.R.
Cool.
John Rusus Rule Tolkien, uh,
Hmm.
and J.R.R. Tolkien's son Christopher kind of is really responsible for a lot of what you see today, because he compiled a lot of his dad's writings, and he kind of handled the rights on the movies that you see. So it was really his son who made Tolkien into a superstar, so to speak.
Oh, that's pretty dope. Beautifully
Oh,
said that
beautifully.
he
Yeah, wow.
met Tolkien's grandson. Nice. Like randomly at the grocery store, or did you go to a book thing?
Well, they're probably
Or
close in age, I would think.
tell us
But yeah,
everything.
wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I also have 20 questions, but I was like, shoot, I can't really do 20 questions. What if nobody shows up? I'll be sitting here talking to myself. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure this won't take an hour. So maybe we can get into that as we go. And they're 20 questions Bible wise, so it's kind of fun. I have
Well, it's
fun.
interesting. You brought up last week. You brought up Peretti's
Mhm.
piercing the darkness, and this is another one, Screw Tape, which is really gives you insight into spiritual warfare and what's going on around us all the time, the spiritual realm. And like you said, this is showing you how the demons are plotting for this patient guy. Uh, the souls of folks who are kind of not committed to Christ yet, uh, and trying to keep them on their side of the kingdom. And
Mhm.
I don't want I don't want to spoil anything, but the patient, he does wind up uh, on the good side of things. So
Yeah,
the
well,
demons the
in
demons lose.
Well, it's interesting. So the by the second letter, which is the one I'm gonna start with, he's already become a Christian. So it's really not too much of a spoiler to say that, but he does die at the end. Spoiler alert, but they don't really they just basically say you lost him. So I'm like, did he physically die? I guess they just don't ever stop working on you until I thought that it was a nice little, like, you got to sort of fill in the blanks on the last letter, for my mind anyway. Let me read this to chat so they can have an idea of what these letters sound like. This one, they're not short, so hang tight. This will be fun though. So it says, Dear Mr. Wormwood, I note with grave displeasure that your patient has become a Christian. Do not indulge the hope that you will escape the usual penalties. Indeed, in your better moments, I trust you would hardly even wish to do so. In the meantime, we must make the best of the situation. There is no need to despair. Hundreds of these adult converts have been reclaimed after a brief sojourn in the enemy's camp and are now with us. All the habits of the patient, both mental and bodily, are still in our favor. One of our great allies at present is the church itself. Do not misunderstand me. I do not mean the church as we see her, spread out through all time and space and rooted in eternity, terrible as an army with banners. That, I confess, is a spectacle which makes our boldest tempters uneasy. But fortunately, it is quite visible to these humans. All your patient sees is the half-finished sham Gothic erection on the new building estate. When he goes inside, he sees the local grocer with rather an oily expression on his face, bustling up to offer him one shiny little book containing a liturgy which neither of them understands, and one shabby little book containing corrupt texts of a number of religious lyrics, mostly bad and in very small print. When he gets to his pew and looks around, he sees just the selection of his neighbors whom he has hitherto avoided. You want to lean pretty heavily on these neighbors. Make his mind flit to and fro between expressions like the body of Christ and the actual faces in the next pew. It matters very little, of course, what kind of people that next pew really contains. You may know one of them to be a great warrior on the enemy side. No matter. Your patient, thanks to our Father below, is a fool. Provided that any of those neighbors sing out of tune, or have boots that squeak, or double chins, or odd clothes, the patient will quite easily believe that their religion must therefore be somehow ridiculous. In his present stage, you see, he has an idea of Christians in his mind which he supposes to be spiritual, but which, in fact, is largely pictorial. His mind is full of togas and sandals and armor and bare legs, and the mere fact that the other people in church wear modern clothes is a real, though of course an unconscious, difficulty to him. Never let it come to the surface. Never let him ask what he expected from them to look like. Keep everything hazy in his mind now, and you will have an all eternity wherein to amuse yourself by producing in him the particular kind of clarity which hell affords. Work hard, then, on the disappointment or anticlimax which is certainly coming in the patient during the first few weeks as a churchman. The enemy allows this disappointment to occur on the threshold of every human endeavor. It occurs when the boy who has been enchanted in the nursery by stories from the Odyssey buckles down to really learn Greek. It occurs when lovers have gotten married and begin the real task of learning to live together. In every department of life, it makes the transition from dreaming aspiration to laborious doing. The enemy takes this risk because he has a curious fantasy of making all these disgusting little human vermin into what he calls his free lovers and servants. Sons is the word he uses. With his inveterate love of degrading the whole spiritual world by unnatural liaisons with the two-legged animals. Desiring their freedom, he therefore refuses to carry them, by their mere affection and habits, to any of the goals which he sets before them. He leaves them to do it on their own, and there lies our opportunity. But also, remember, there lies our danger. If once they get through this initial dryness successfully, they become much less dependent on emotion, and therefore much harder to tempt. I have been writing you on the assumption that the people in the next pew afford no rational grounds for disappointment. Of course, if they do, if the patient knows that the woman with the absurd hat is a fanatical bridge player or the man with squeaky boots a miser and extortioner, then your task is so much the easier. All you have to do is to keep out of his mind the question, if I, being what I am, can consider what I am in some sense a Christian, why should the different vices of those people in the next pew prove that their religion is mere hypocrisy and convention? You may ask whether it is possible to keep such an obvious thought from occurring even to a human mind. It is, Wormwood, it is. Handle him properly, and it simply won't come into his head. He has not been anything like long enough with the enemy to have any real humility yet. What he says, even on his knees, about his own simpleness is all parrot talk. At bottom, he still believes he has run up a very favorable credit balance in the enemy's ledger by allowing himself to be converted, and thinks that he is showing great humility and condescension and going to church with these smug, commonplace neighbors at all. Keep him at that state of mind as long as you can. Your affectionate Uncle Screwtape. So that is what the letters sound like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a place somewhere where um, they think of us as meat, like cows,
Mhm. Mhm.
to be devoured. So they really
Yeah.
don't have a high they don't really don't have a high opinion of we two-legged
Well, that
creatures.
that is how it goes in the toast, and because they're in the toast, which we'll read next, he's introducing more of these tempters that are gonna be, these evil spirits in the world. He's teaching them, and they're in hell when he's doing it, and basically in hell, the souls that die, the bad ones that stay with them, they get to devour. So he kind of starts those letters with the yummy, tasty ones like Hitler and the, like, really diabolical ones we barely get anymore, but we get such a plethora of kind of shit souls that are not even that tasty, but there's so many that it's fine. So, basically, in hell, they've got to the point where people aren't as bad and so obvious, but they're just bad enough to not make it, and as far as they go. So they do definitely eat the souls.
And it's interesting, right off he's talking the senior guy to the junior guy,
Mhm.
uh, telling him, well, keep his mind on the faults of others. Um, keep his mind on his own faults, but make sure that he gets prideful too. Um, Basically, all the deadly sins, they work on those and try to encourage those in the life of the patient.
Mhm. Yeah, there are 31 of those letters, and that's just the second one. So as they go on from there, yeah, I do think it's interesting that the first letter is what it is. The second letter, he becomes a Christian, and they just have to battle against a Christian the whole time. So I like that idea. Although I was like, wait, we're already here. There's 30 more letters. What am I supposed to, how are we gonna go far? But he did a really good job at putting these together. But and in the garden when the serpent says, "Did God really say?" You know, "Surely you won't die." That's the oldest trick in the book. It's just changing a word here or there to make it even maybe not even changing the word, but changing the meaning of the word, which we are knee deep in a culture that has changed so many words to make who knows why. If you read this book, it's because the enemy has a plan for us. And I kinda believe in that.
And it's
Mm,
always interesting too that they try to make good sound bad and bad sound good. Um, like Satan in the garden, he tried to make God sound bad. God is keeping stuff from you guys. That you guys need to know. And and he they the demons. I don't want to say that we're all attacked by demons all the time. I think sometimes it's it's within ourselves, but it's just like I know a lot of people in chat are in pain or deal with pain on a regular basis, and it's very hard sometimes to see the upside of pain. Um,
Mhm.
but you know, you have to think that if we're being attacked by spiritual forces, they're gonna try to use what they can, and certainly one of them is our physical limitations.
Yeah. Do you think this is kind of a new concept for me to think that all of the familiar spirits are also just demons? I don't
Yeah,
find that I can figure out a difference between the 2.
the one of the hard things too is you see in the scriptures, you don't see a lot of things, but particularly in Jesus' ministry, um, he runs across demons and people all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and they're usually causing, you know, infirmities. But every once in a while, you see one that's giving somebody powers.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, it's just interesting when you see that how they work on folks who I don't want to say demon possessed have no hope because Jesus cast the demons out of several people, and it's obvious that they do have hope. But it's very spiritual warfare. It's going on around us all the time, and especially for those who, as the patient starts out as non Christian, um, you know, they try to do what they can. I think as Lewis describes aptly, that they try to do what they can to keep the folks from God, keep the folks in their side of the court, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah, I almost wish I would've picked out another letter to read that had a lot of more of those examples, but I didn't. So I guess you guys are gonna have to get the book, but yeah, I do think I know that the enemy is working at us all the time. I don't know that they have to work as hard on people that are already, you know, kind of walking that way, you know? But I don't think they have to let up either because God is, there's always, equal and opposite reaction. So they'll keep like tabs on us, but I don't know that they have to put these thoughts in our head, or I guess I don't even know if is it
And
thoughts in our head?
I probably should say too that you never know what someone is going through internally. Medic Mitchell has just brought up the uh,
Dang.
passing of his sister-in-law, who was, I guess, into drugs and alcohol. You never really know what's going on internally with somebody. I've had people who I've lost, family members who I've lost, who they did not seem to be on the right side of things spiritually.
Mhm.
Um, but then I found out some things after they passed that encouraged me that, you know, well, maybe they would, maybe they were. They in life a lot of times with what we run into, people tend to I think everybody believes in God, but they get angry at God for one thing or the other, and they don't they don't want to have a good relationship with God. But you just really never know. So
Yeah.
I hold out hope for everybody. Um,
Yeah.
but we especially want to remember these three girls and their loss, and it seems like they had a hard time with the parents, and
Yeah.
that can
Sorry you're going through that.
that can be a hard thing. We want to remember these three girls especially.
Yikes. So, yes, my ancestors sending prayers. We are as well. I'll keep you. I don't, sometimes when I say, like, I'll pray for them, I'm always like, and you and everybody else. Do you think that waters down what I'm saying? 'Cause I don't want it to sound, do you know what I'm
I think
saying?
so. It's
Yeah.
like it's like in our relationship in talking or praying to God. Uh, the Bible is kind of specific that we're to pray without ceasing,
Mhm.
and yet we're to let our words be few. So God is always aware of what we're going through. His concern is for us to keep that connection. in our head as we walk around doing whatever we do each day. Just remember that God is with you, that God is there, God is everywhere, and you can tap into the resources that He offers um, at any drop of a hat at any moment, and He really appreciates it. I think when we try to do that, we don't always understand Him. He's so far above us, and
Hmm.
uh, but you have to just trust um,
He
that He
knows.
loves you. He loves you, and He wants to see you through whatever you're going through.
Yeah. And I think that's why that letter I picked number 2 in this series was good because I know I have one of my sisters, not the one in chat, but one of my other sisters, when she found Jesus, I think, one summer or found God. And when she came back from the summer and life wasn't perfect, when school still had humans in it and struggles still happened, she was like, "Forget it. I thought everything was gonna be fine and good, and this is trash." And she walked away and still is continued to walk up until today, she's still lost. But a lot of people think that when you get to church, it's gonna fix everything, and I think that kinda makes the battle intensify, like, you you're on the enemy's radar, but you become central to their radar when they know that they won't have a meal out of you, you know? And so I think the spiritual battle should be talked about more in our churches. Maybe it is, I don't go, but I know when I was a kid, one time my sister was like, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "You don't believe in the Holy Ghost?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, shoot, I do." So we must have had us like, they must have taught us about that one day because that was on our minds that week, but that is how like, it was just almost a nothing to me. I didn't understand it whatsoever until, you know, maybe
That's why it's that's why
6
it's
years ago.
hard to know where somebody's at. Most of the time, it's hard for us to know where we're at. Um, I do think that a Christian can have assurance of salvation. Um, I do believe in once saved, always saved. Um, but a lot of people misunderstand what people who believe that believe about it. I do think there are times when people are closer to God or further away from God, um, and it's hard to know if somebody is really in a right relationship with God and sense of depending on God for their salvation. That Christ died on the cross for them. Um, so
Yeah. I think, like, the Calvinists kind of think of it as once saved, always saved, and if you go back, you start, like, say, full-blown worshiping Satan, you were never saved in the first place. That's sort of how it is that how it's seen?
Well, it can seem so, but it's really hard for us to say about anybody. We have lots of examples from the scriptures, and Solomon's probably the most popular one. The scripture mentions, Solomon became king, and he was really concerned that he do it right, and he asked for wisdom. And God made him the wisest man, some people would say, who ever lived. But at the end of his life, his wives, he had so many wives and concubines that they turned his heart, they turned him away from God. So it's hard to say, um, where he wound up. But you like to think that people who were that close to God, even if they turn away or walk away somewhere, you would hope God knows. We don't know. God knows the heart. Um, and so you always hold out hope for even the most unscrupulous person who seems to be, as bad as they can try to be. But you hold out hope for them.
Definitely. Most definitely. We're gonna get into the very last section of this book, and it's called "Screwtape Proposes a Toast." Are you ready for this? Take care, Miami. It was good to see you. Thanks for coming in. This is gonna be a little bit longer. I mean, I don't know how many pages this was. I think it's like 20 pages or something total, but I'm not going to read them all. I went through and I highlighted with these wonderful gel markers. I love them. So that I didn't have to
Was-
read everything.
You want us to interrupt or just let you finish?
You could totally interrupt. You would be the one that would be able to interrupt me, and since you could see chat, that's totally fine. I will be looking at the book. I need to get my glasses on.
I know sometimes when we did Bible study proper, when we just went through Genesis or Matthew, we would read, have somebody read, but then we would pop in when we had something to say.
Yeah, totally. This is going to be okay. I guess politics is also on my mind. So it was I don't know. I was kind of happy to see this. We're going to talk about democracy next. So I was like, oh, sweet. This is how I think it's going. This is something that the enemy uses. It's a twist of the words. It's everything. So yeah, pop in and it with whatever you might think is relevant. And if you don't, I'll just assume that you're just obsessed with the words, just like me. I'm trying to rearrange some stuff. Okay.
The voice of divinity is mesmerizing.
I just can't read. And so that's always fun to stumble. Whatever. Okay, so this is what it says. It says the scene is in hell at the annual dinner of the Tempters Training College for Young Devils. The principal, Dr. Slubgob, has just proposed the health of the guest. Screwtape, a very experienced devil, who is the guest of honor, rises to reply. There's the scene for y'all. So it says, Mr. Principal, Your Eminence, your disgraces, my thorns, shadies, and gentle devils. It is customary on these occasions for the speaker to address himself chiefly to those among you who have just graduated and who will very soon be posted to official tempterships on earth. It is a custom I willingly obey. I will remember with what trepidation I awaited my own first appointment. I hope and believe that each of you has the same uneasiness tonight. Your career is before you. Hell expects and demands that it should be, as mine was, one of unbroken success. If it is not, you know what awaits you. So it sounds like they also get punished. But what's punishment to a demon? Like happiness? I don't know. So we skipped ahead a bunch of pages to get to the part that I was interested in. They're talking about the different ways that they've tempted through the years. And he says, by the latter part of the century, the situation is simple and also more ominous. The enemy, with his usual sleight of hand, has largely appropriated his progressive and liberalized movement and perverted it to his own good. So he's saying he used what we intended for bad for his good. Very little of its old anti-Christianity remained. The dangerous phenomenon called Christian socialism was rampant. Factory owners of the good old type grew rich on sweated labor instead of being assassinated by their work people. We could have used that. We're being frowned upon by their own class. The rich were increasingly giving up their powers, not in face of revolution or compulsion, but in obedience to their own conscience. Believe me, gentle devils, the threat of something like a really healthy state of society seemed then perfectly serious. Thanks to our Father below, the threat was averted. Our counterattack was on two levels. On the deepest level, our leaders contrived to call into full life an element which had been implicit in the movement from its earliest days. Hidden in the heart of this striving for liberty, there was also a deep hatred of personal freedom. That invaluable man, Rousseau, first revealed it. In his perfect democracy, remember, only the state religion is permitted. Slavery is restored, and the individual is told that he has really willed, though he didn't know it, whatever the government tells him to do. I heard the other day that in that country, a man could not, without a permit, cut down his own tree with his own axe, make it into planks with his own saw, and use the planks to build a tool shed in his own garden. You, who are mere beginners, will not be entrusted with work of that kind. You will be attached as tempters to private persons. Against them or through them, our counterattacks take a different form. Democracy is the word which you must lead them by the nose. The good work which our philological experts have already done in the corruption of human language makes it unnecessary to warn you that they should never be allowed to give this word a clear and definable meaning. They won't. It will never occur to them that democracy is properly the name of a political system, even a system of voting, and that this has only the most remote and tenuous connection with what you are trying to sell them. Nor, of course, must they ever be allowed to raise Aristotle's question whether democratic behavior means the behavior that democracies like or the behavior that will preserve democracy. Or if they did, it could hardly fail to occur to them that these need not be the same. You are to use the word purely as an incantation, if you like, purely for its selling power. It is the name they venerate, and of course, it is connected with the political ideal that men should be equally treated. You then make a stealthy transition in their minds from this political ideal to a factual belief that all men are equal, especially the man you are working on. As a result, you can use the word democracy to sanction in his thoughts the most degrading and also the least enjoyable of all human feelings. You can get him to practice, not only without shame, but with a positive glow of self-approval, conduct which, if undefended by the magic word, would be universally derided. The feeling I mean is, of course, that which prompts a man to say, I am as good as you. The first and most obvious advantage is that you thus induce him to enthrone at the center of his life a good, solid, resounding lie. I don't mean merely that this statement is false in fact, that he is no more equal to everyone he meets in kindness, honesty, and good sense than in height or waist measurement. I mean that he does not believe it himself. No man who says, I'm as good as you, believes it. He would not say it if he did. The St. Bernard never says it to the toy dog, nor the scholar to the dunce, nor the employable to the bum, nor the pretty woman to the plain. The claim to equality outside the strictly political field is made only by those who feel themselves to be in some way inferior. What it expresses is precisely the itching, smarting, writhing awareness of an inferiority which the patient refuses to accept, and therefore resents every kind of superiority in others, denigrates it, wishes its annihilation. Presently, he suspects every mere difference of being he suspects every mere difference of being a claim of any difference being a claim of superiority. No one must be different from himself in voice, clothes, manners, recreation, choice of food. Here is someone who speaks English rather clearly and more clearly than I. It must be a vile upstage, la-di-di affectionate. Here's a fellow who says he doesn't like hot dogs. He thinks himself too good for them, no doubt. Here's a man who hasn't turned on the jukebox. He is one of those goddamn highbrows and is doing it to show off. If they were honest to God, all right Joes, they'd be like me. They've no business to be different. It's undemocratic. Now, this useful phenomenon is in itself by no means new. Under the name of envy, it has been known to the humans for thousands of years. Those who are aware of feeling it felt it with shame. Those who were not gave it no quarter in others. The delightful novelty of the present situation is that you can sanction it, make it respectable and even laudable by the incantory use of the word democratic. Those who are in any and every way inferior can labor more wholeheartedly and successfully than ever before to pull down everyone else to their own level. That's not all. Under the same influence, those who come, or could come, nearer to a full humanity actually draw back from it for fear of being undemocratic. I am credibly informed that young humans now sometimes suppress an incipient taste for classical music or good literature because it might prevent their being like folks. that people who would really wish to be and are offered the grace which would enable them to be honest, chaste, or temperate refused it. To accept might make them different, might offend against the way of life, take them out of togetherness, impair their integration with the group. They might, horror of horrors, become individuals. All is summed up in the prayer which a young female human is said to have uttered recently. "O God, make me a normal 20th century girl. Thanks to our labors, this will mean increasingly, make me a minx, a moron, a parasite." As a result, we have an intelligentsia which, though very small, is very useful to the cause of hell. But that is a mere byproduct. What I want to fix your attention on is the vast overall movement towards the discrediting and finally the elimination of every kind of human excellence, moral, cultural, social, and intellectual. And it is not pretty to notice how democracy is now doing for us the work which was once done by the ancient dictatorships and by the same methods. You remember how one of the Greek dictators, then they called them tyrants, sent an envoy to another dictator to ask his advice about the principles of government? The second dictator led the envoy into a field of grain, and there he snicked off with his cane the top of every stalk that rose an inch or two above the general level. The moral was plain: allow no preeminence among your subjects. Let no man live who is wiser or better or more famous or handsomer than the mass. Cut them all down to a level, all slaves, all ciphers, all nobodies, all equals. But now democracy can do the same work without any tyranny other than her own. No one need now go through the field with a cane. The little stalks will now of themselves bite the tops off the big ones. The big ones are beginning to bite off their own in their desire to be like the other stalks. These creatures that have almost ceased to be individual is a laborious and tricky work. But if proper pains and skills are expended, you can be fairly confident of the result. The great sinner seems easier to catch, but they are very incalculable. After you have played them for 70 years, the enemy may snatch them from your claws in the 71st. They are capable, you see, of real repentance. They are conscious of real guilt. They are, if things take the wrong turn, as ready to defy the social pressures around them for the enemy's sake as they were to defy them for ours. It is in some way more troublesome to track and swat an evasive wasp than to shoot at close range a wild elephant, but the elephant is more troublesome if you miss. You must labor to make the country you are dealing with more like England already is. In that promising land, the spirit of "I am as good as you" has already become something more than generally social influence. It begins to work itself into their education system. The basic principles of the new education is to be that dunces and idlers must not be made to feel inferior to intelligence and industrious pupils. That would be undemocratic. These differences between the pupils, for they are obvious and nakedly individual differences, must be disguised. At university, exams must be framed so that nearly all the students get good marks. At schools, children who are too stupid or lazy to learn languages and maths and elementary science can be set to doing things that children used to do in their spare time. Let them, for example, make mud pies and call it modeling. But all the time, there must be no faintest hint that they are inferior to the children who are at work. Whatever nonsense they are engaged in must have, I believe the English already use the phrase, parity of esteem. That sounds like No Child Left Behind to me. And children who are fit to proceed to a higher class may be artificially kept back because the others would get traumatized by being left behind. The bright pupil thus remains democratically fettered to his own age group throughout his school career. In a word, we may reasonably hope for the virtual abolition of education when "I'm as good as you" has fully had its way. All incentives to learn and all penalties for not learning will vanish. The few who might want to learn will be prevented. Who are they to overtop their fellows? And anyway, the teachers, or should I say nurses, It will be far too busy reassuring the dunces and patting them on the back to waste any time on real teaching. Of course, this would not follow unless all education became state education, but it will. That is part of the same movement. Penal taxes, designed for that purpose, are liquidating the middle class, the class who were prepared to save and spend and make sacrifices in order to have their children privately educated. The removal of this class, besides linking up with the abolition of education, is fortunately an inevitable effect of the spirit that says, I'm as good as you. My dog's trying to get in here. This was, after all, the social group which gave to the humans the overwhelming majority of their scientists, physicians, philosophers, theologians, poets, artists, composers, architects, jurists, and administrators. If ever there was a bunch of tall stocks that needed their tops knocked off, it was surely they. As an English policeman remarked not long ago, a democracy does not want great men. What we must realize is that democracy, in the diabolical sense, the I'm as good as you, is the finest instrument. Hold on a second. Okay. We have
Down,
the loud dog.
down, woof, woof.
Yeah. Go do your dog stuff. Go sleep. Okay. Democracy in the diabolical sense is the finest instrument we could possibly have for extirpating political democracies from the face of the earth. For democracy, or the democratic spirit, leads to a nation without great men, a nation mainly of subliterates, full of the cocksureness which flattery breeds on ignorance, and quick to snarl or whimper at the first hint of criticism. For when such a nation meets in conflict, a nation where children have been made to work at school, where talent is placed in high posts, and where the ignorant masses are allowed no say at all in public affairs, only one result is possible. The overthrow of free people and the multiplication of slave states are for us a means, besides, of course, being fun, but the real end is the destruction of individuals, for only individuals can be saved or damned. The ultimate value for us of any revolution, war, or famine lies in the individual anguish, treachery, hatred, rage, and despair which it may produce. I'm as good as you as a useful means to be for the destruction of democratic societies. But it has a far deeper value as an end in itself, as a state of mind which necessarily excluding humanity, charity, contentment, and all the pleasures of gratitude or admiration, turns a human being away from almost every road which might finally lead him to heaven. The end.
Yeah, I think it's I'm not sure I would completely agree with Lewis here, but I do think he's looking at democracy in the worst possible light.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way in which you can say, we all swim or sink together. That most of the times we would all sink together. And I think that's how he's looking at it, or how the demon is presenting it, and that it's like the commonality of mediocrity. If you all look at each other as the same, then nobody rises above to to do anything grand. In that sense, you let the demon hordes, be in control. And
You don't. Okay, so that was written in 1959. That last part that we read, the toast. I feel like that is maybe they didn't use this for their playbook, but it feels like what has unfolded here in America. The dumbing
yeah,
down of everyone to make everyone the same. If you're different, that means you think you're better. That means you need to be knocked down. If like
yeah,
men or women.
it's the woke culture, where everybody has to get a reward. Everybody, if you're all running a race, nobody really wins the race. Everybody has to get an award. At the end, you have to praise everybody for. It's like participation becomes the greatest the greatest things. It's not a victory, and that's how they're presenting democracy. It's that nobody rises above. It's just like what's happened with communism. Initially everybody thought it would be such a great thing. In the Bible, you had a point where the early church, where they all shared everything in common and gave to everyone according to his need. And it seems like a great thing, but it didn't work. It didn't work then. It doesn't work now, um, because there's always error in the system. And the demon, the senior screw tape is presenting, he's giving the toast, I think,
Mhm.
and he's presenting that as long as you keep them saying, "I'm as good as you," uh, that nobody becomes better.
Right. Like that, and so it said we're at one point they're at the point where you no longer have to take them into the field and use your cane against them. They'll use it against themselves and each other. And I feel like that is 100% where we're at right now. The individual is frowned upon. It's something that excellence is frowned upon. It seems like these tactics of the underworld have permeated American society to the fact that we're a republic that gets called a democracy outside of the way that we vote, outside of the way in more like that insipid way that they're talking about, where we're all the same, and that's what it means now.
And I did see a bit of that in our education system when I was growing up. I was a smart fella, and there was a point where I had to take two maths at the same time in order to take an advanced math.
Mhm.
And so I took algebra and trig at the same time, and I was almost like the teacher in the algebra class. I would help the students, to understand because I already knew it all. Um, but and a lot of times in the education system, you see, uh, like if somebody's a genius, no, you can't be a genius. You've got to be uh, on a level playing field with
Mhm.
everybody else. We're going to teach to the lowest denominator
Right,
in the
because those other
class.
kids might feel bad.
Yeah, you got to bring everybody up, at the same time. You can't let anybody rise above. So you do see a bit of that, especially today in the education system, I think. Like you said, leave no child behind. Uh, well, you're going to leave some of the smartest people behind because you're dumbing
Right.
down what you're teaching to uh, for the sake of the most ignorant.
Mhm. Teach to the test instead of to their ability,
Yeah.
which is a problem. But I think that's where it comes down to not understanding the words, not understand like the words have a lot of power in them, and so they steal them back so that we can't use them against it's everything is politically correct. They didn't say this in screw tape letters, but had they known that, the thought of what PC culture was, I'm sure they would have taught, heavy-handed used that, let the tempters know about those things. But I don't know.
Well, like you said, in 1959, Lewis is presenting in the hierarchy of demonology, um, that that's a tool to be used to keep everybody down, to keep everybody the same.
Yeah. I think not we're there. We're a society that's gonna implode on itself. I mean, even to the fact of getting rid of the education system. It's like, I don't think that's been fleshed out enough as far as the thinking. People are like, "Just defund the Department of Education." It's like, "No, no, no. Change the way the Department of Education runs. Don't just get rid of it fully, because then we're back, we set ourselves back 100 years."
So any sense in becoming a Christian religiously, um, it's not a superiority. It's not a moral high ground. There is no moral high ground. Um, as the demon said, let them make sure that they promote I'm as good as you, which in
Yeah.
a sense we are all in the same boat, and none of us is any better than the other person, but they're using it as a weapon to make sure that uh, nobody advances morally or nobody advances
And
monetarily or
yeah.
intellectually.
Yeah, and I think that that's scary. And just reading it written so long ago, I'm like, "Oh, dang, I'm gonna read this," because it's interesting. Take back your thoughts, take back the words, understand what they mean, use them in their proper context, and most of all, ask questions because in this book, the demon's big job was to prevent us thinking for ourselves, like, keep their minds so preoccupied that they never go, "Wait, why do I do this? Or what am I doing this for?" And those are the questions that God's like, "Yes, ask that. Ask that and keep walking with me and, lean not into your own understanding, but, don't take that so far that you can't meaning you can't understand things." It's like, don't try to, we're walking in the flesh, we're walking in the physical world, but it's a spiritual battle. So in for the battle, lean on God, understand God, but, you know, it we're doing that thing where we put our lights, under a blanket to make the darkness feel good, and that's ridiculous. We're not the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when you talk about democracy, too, there's um, you know, he was talking about uh, have the beautiful or the smart um, think that that's no advantage to them. They um, the slow or the infirmed. Uh,
Mhm.
that's no. They're trying to make everything common, everything at one level. Um, and I
Yeah,
think I think we do sometimes fall into that trap. I think a lot of times, beautiful people they feel it's a curse to be beautiful. Smart people feel like it's a curse to be smart. Um, People who maybe have some infirmity or feel not as smart as the other people in their class. Um, they feel that that's a curse.
right.
They don't realize that God may have purposes for a variety within His creation. I
Yeah,
think you talk to some of these mothers who have infirm children, and they will tell you how precious they are, um, how they have inspired their lives. Um,
well,
and
yeah, I don't think God is trying it in the spiritual battle, it's not about like, there's no perfection needed. You don't have to look a certain way or be a certain way or, any of that. Like, but we're none of us are as pretty as we were when we were young. Old people, I mean, maybe some old people are, but, in general, we will all lose our looks and our minds slowly over, the years that we're alive. So it's not like perfect people need to enter the kingdom. I think that's keeping us focused on things that don't matter, but it's also killing the individual that will think for themselves, which I find because we're still living in this world, doesn't seem to me ending anytime soon, that that just puts people in a state of depression or, just in a bad state where you can be used, you know, originally one of the seven, there were 8 deadly sins. We talked about this on my show with Hideous. And one of them was like that gloom. They took that out completely so that you didn't know that that was a doorway into a spiral, that's it's giving. So the way that it works is you can't just the demons can't attach themselves to you. You have to invite them in. You have to give them permission to be in you. That's why they say, forgive people, repent, like all of these things. You have to if you've given these demons permission to be in you, you have to also cast them out. You know, you have to revoke that. Damn, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, so with gloom, with the deadly sins, if we don't even recognize that that is one of these doorways that we're kind of leaving ajar in our soul to let the not darkness, the dark thoughts, whatever in, then it's harder to guard against it. We know envy, we know gluttony. And in this book, gluttony is addressed, and they talk about not necessarily the gluttony of overeating, but the gluttony of only eating certain foods. You know, oh, I only eat white meat chicken. So you turn your nose up at that. That is a form of gluttony. It's a form of, you know,
Or
making.
just an over, or just an overabundance, like where you have Jesus say it's really hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven, um, because they have such a gluttony of blessings that they trip over them.
Mhm. Well, a lot of people find the heaven through struggle. And so when you don't have those struggles, aka when you're rich, then I guess I could see why you wouldn't have a lot of reason to call on God. A lot of people take that as you shouldn't be rich. Because I don't know. I don't know why. Because I guess it sounds like that.
Well, it really clarifies when it says that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil.
Yeah.
Um, it's not the money itself. It's the love. It's when you become so dependent upon it instead of being dependent on your creator.
Yeah. That's a whole hour, Squabble. We did it. Do you want to see if you can answer any of these? Let me see if you can. Let me do a 20 questions on you. Can I?
Sure.
Okay. So it starts with, there are just clues, and I think they get easier as we go down. So it's starting with the harder ones. And it's just going, let me see, what's the answer? Okay. I know the answer. So if you say it, I'll know.
Well,
People
there's a
are,
right answer and a wrong answer, huh?
there's one right answer and probably a lot of wrong answers. I'm not sure I would have known this one, but here are the clues. People argued with me. I was full of the Holy Spirit. People gnashed their teeth at me. I was full of God's grace and power. I did great wonders and miracles. I was accused of blasphemy. I went before the Sanhedrin. People recorded words. No, first recorded words. Brothers and fathers. I called people stiff-necked. False witnesses testified against me. I fell asleep. I gave quite a speech. My face was like an angel's. I saw heaven open. We're down to the last 6. My last words were, do not hold this sin against them. People covered their ears when I spoke. I prayed while I died. Saul watched me die. I was stoned to death. I was the first Christian martyr. Who is this?
That's Stephen.
Yeah, good job. I don't know if I would have known that. The first Christian martyr, stoned to death while Saul watched. So that was when Saul was doing his thing. He killed Stephen.
Well, I don't think the Bible comes out and says that much, but yeah, somebody like Saul killed Stephen.
Dang. Maybe Saul captured him. Isn't that fun? I like this little game.
It was kind of interesting. There's a couple of times there I was kind of went one way or the other.
Do you want to do another one? This one might be easier. I'm not sure if chat's moving or there just isn't chat. Last thing I see is Morning Miami from Vicky. Good morning, Vicky. Glad you made it. Let's do one more and then we'll take off. You can interrupt me. If you think you know it, you can interrupt me anytime and win this game. Okay, this one. My name means gift of the Lord. I'm the son of Alphaeus. Alphaeus. I followed Jesus. I hosted a great banquet. I was sent like sheep among wolves. Jesus ate at my house. I was also called Levi. I collect things. I appear in chapter 9 of my book. That feels like a giveaway. Mark and Luke called me a different name. I traced Jesus' lineage back to Abraham. I was sitting with when Jesus called me. I'm one of the 12. Sinners ate at my house. I wrote mostly to Jewish readers. Only I mention the Magi. My book ends with the Great Commission. I recorded the Sermon on the Mount. I was a tax collector.
Matthew.
It is Matthew. My name is still very popular is the last clue. I was reading Matthew yesterday, so I feel like that was easier for me. I was, what did he say? I appear in chapter 9 of my book. Oh, my Lanta, that feels like a giveaway. I like that. I do think 20 questions is fun, but I didn't think I could do it myself. So thank you for indulging me in my little game. Thank you for doing the show with me. I don't know what it gave to our audience, but it get it off my chest. So I don't have to feel like I need to tell somebody about SCREWTAPE or democracy or how any of these things work. So I appreciate you being here for this.
Well, I think it's further insight into how our enemy twists things and works against us.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say puts thoughts in our heads, but works with the thoughts that we already have to to turn them to the bad side, to the dark side.
Yeah, yeah. Because our thoughts are on, but they have to come from, I don't
Because a
know.
lot of
I'm not
people,
sure.
a lot of people would say democracy is a great thing. It's certainly better than slavery, right? But then the
Sure.
Bible talks of us as being slaves. Um,
But free slaves.
Free slaves, but yeah. Um, but some people think of God the same way in terms of a democracy. Um, we talked last week about Satan voting against us and God voting for us, and we cast
Mhm,
the deciding vote. And
mhm.
I don't really, go that route, but a lot of good Christians do. And but it's like that's the promoting of democracy that all our votes are equal, and there's a
Right.
sense in which it's good, and there's a sense in which it's bad.
And I think that it's spelled out really well in the way that they're saying democracy is a system. It is not it's not the system. It is a form of voting that's. I have this, let's see. Democracy, a system of government where the power lies directly in the hands of the people for decision making. Decisions are made by majority rule. The difference is in a republic, elected, they're bound by the Constitution in a republic. In a democracy, people could just get together and be like, "We want your house, we want your whatever." In a republic, which is what we have, we voted for our representative to and our government to. They can't make any rules outside of our Constitution and outside of our individual rights. And so when we call ourselves a democracy, it's just a small twist. And you're right, to a certain degree, we do vote democratically, but we are a republic because we believe in individual rights. Democracies don't. They believe in the rights of all the people to get together and decide for you. And that is a huge flaw in understanding. And I think we're falling into this trap a lot just by, I mean, I put up some of these tweets. They keep calling the guy who won the popular vote a threat to democracy. If you believe preserving wasteful government spending on foreign projects while the country plummets into insurmountable debt is saving democracy, please turn off the internet, read a book. Just if just looking at the way that the word is used to say that democracy I don't know, I just feel like it's a slippery slope, and it begins with twisting that word democracy to mean more than what it means. It does mean something. We do appreciate it here in America, but it isn't who we are. We're a republic that respects individual rights, and to stomp out an individual would be to stomp out what God did to make us each individually unique. It's just it's the long game, and I don't like it.
Has a different flavor to it, but another word that's used a lot of times is humanism.
Mhm.
Humanism, where I think a lot of people would say Thomas Jefferson was a humanist, um, where it raises man to the level of the master of his own fate, the master of his own ship,
I
and that might elevate the human in some ways, but in other ways, like you said, it really becomes a stumbling block to raising man to a place that he doesn't deserve and doesn't have. We serve a king. We serve God. Um, he's our creator. He's a different level of being from us, far far superior. And and s- submitting to that a lot of times is a hard thing because you have to give up your humanism. You have to give up having God in a pocket and pulling him out just when you need him. Or
Yeah. I think, like, humanism kinda goes in line with how I feel about free will, but then I think, we are given we do get to choose for ourselves. We can decide, "I am God," or like they did in the garden, or you can decide God is God. So it comes back to kinda that twist, and then if you win and if you make that decision, you don't lose your humanity, you just rearrange the order in which it goes, God first and then you. So, yeah, I'm not sure about humanism, but from a secular perspective, I think I probably would agree with that because that does align with how I believe free will is, you know? You can choose if you wanna eat the fruit, or you could choose to trust in God.
I really do think it comes down to a matter of perspective of how you're looking at the thing that you're discussing. Um, because I do believe man has responsibility. Um, that we're going to be we are accountable for what we do. We're accountable for what we think, what we feel.
Mhm.
Uh,
I think the Bible's pretty clear on that. I think that was Jesus's big thing, like, it's not about what you do, it's about how you are inside. It's your thoughts, your feelings, unless your actions, if you've got the good thoughts and good feelings, your actions will show, but good actions don't prove a good heart, because anyone could play that fake role of being a nice. This is a picture that the AI made, it's actually pretty good. I had a huge argument with the AI this weekend. It wouldn't talk to me after a while.
well, I did
But
find it
whatever.
interesting that you have in the background there, you've got angels, colorful, different angels,
Aren't they
and then
beautiful?
in the foreground, you've got colorful, different demons.
So the background image is also, an AI image, but I asked it to do the spirit world, and that's what it came up with. How do I move
Oh,
this?
wow.
Can you move? Let me see if I can move us around so we could see it. I could see it a little bit better. I know, isn't that cool? I was like, "Oh, I like this." And so, yeah, there aren't necessarily demons here, but I think that's a huge trick as well. I don't think that demons look like we've been taught. I don't think Satan looks like we've been taught. It's an angel, beautiful angel of light.
Yeah,
So,
if you go from descriptions in the Bible, you could just about reverse it. Um, that the evil one appears as an angel of light, and then when a lot of times when the Bible is describing angels, they're like four faces and full of eyes, and
mhm.
it's something hideous. that you might see on the other picture.
Yeah. I think we've been a little bit bamboozled when it comes to that. But do you know tomorrow is the Super Bowl already again?
Tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like we just had the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure the Chiefs just won like a month ago, but they're not gonna win this time. I'm fully supporting the Eagles tomorrow, even though I'm not gonna watch it. I won't watch it, but I will eat the foods as if the game is on. I'm looking forward to
Chips and
mini
dips.
weenies, chips and dips, the little smokies. Um, yeah,
No, I
all of
haven't
it.
I haven't I haven't followed really any professional sports for a while. I think they all became so tainted in my mind that I just don't. I'll follow college ball. Um, I think it's tending to be the same now, but it used to be, I don't know. And then you have the elevation of sports academically in schools. They're the ones that get all the money, where maybe they're the ones that make all the money, but
Yeah,
I think especially here in America, probably worldwide, if you bring soccer into it, is that we've really elevated physicality to a role that it doesn't need to have.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's their gift and that's where they excel. I don't think we should take our cane to them and chop them down. But yeah, the order of things. We take any celebrity really. If you're a sports or movies, like these people are the giants of now. It seems in so many people's world. It's like who gives a shit what a celebrity says? I'm baffled when people take their celebrities word for gospel. I'm like, "What? Who?" They're just a human being. I don't get it. Good morning.
I think it's especially become problematic politically um,
Yeah.
nowadays with celebrities. You
Yeah,
know, it's one thing if they're selling a Pepsi or Wonder Bread or Wheaties or something like that, but um, when they get telling you what's right and what's wrong, it you know.
well, even that though, right? Like, you should be able to know what goes in your body without going, "Well, OJ is on the front of this one. This must be good for me." Like, what how do those 2 things relate? Do you really think that Tiger Woods drives a freaking Buick? I don't. But my grandma and their neighbors both got a rendezvous because Tiger was the Buick sponsor. It's like, I mean, maybe he got a free one and maybe he does drive it, but that's asinine to me to be like, it somehow will change my world to do what they're doing. What? It's
Mhm.
like take back yourself for a moment. Realize like I don't know. I don't see there a problem with appreciating them. I appreciate movies, I appreciate celebrities, but to then find out what their opinions are and to mirror them, that's crazy to me. But it's
Yeah.
just crazy. I guess maybe they feel like some of their luck will wear off and some of their fame, some of their something will wear off. They'll be important for I don't know. I don't know what it is. Yes, I absolutely despise being advertised to. If I want your product, I will seek it out. The AI was doing this to me this weekend. I was like, blah, 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 whatever question, and then it would give me an answer and then pop up these advertisements. I'm like, stop advertising to me. It's like, and it would tell me, I don't have control over this. I'm like, then just give me yes or no answers. And I had to like walk back the AI to tell it what its job was without it doing all this other weird shit. I'm like, ugh, yeah, I hate it.
Well, now I'll have to honestly put forth too that we do this as Christians a lot of times, um, or different religions. I have the Jehovah Witnesses come to my door.
Mhm.
The Mormons come to my door, and the Jehovah's Witnesses especially. They have a colorful little pamphlet that they'll give you. We're selling Jesus. We're selling you know and we do that with the church. We've got these big cathedrals and all this finery and the
Yeah, I don't think
preacher
we should do
wears
that.
robes. Well, yeah, that's I'm
I
just
think it's a
saying.
turnoff. I don't
I'm
I
just
mean,
saying that.
maybe door to door is fine, right? Maybe I don't not saying that, but as far as, like, I think if we are a light, just like MA said, people will say, "What's up with the light?" They will ask you about the light if they're interested in it. You don't have to oversell it. You don't have to force it down somebody's throat. If it's good, they'll want it. If it, it's such a twist in the way I think that the church should be.
Yeah.
Oh no, Vicky's having a struggle starting her fire, and she lives where it's very cold. I think it's been snowing for her all week, so hopefully you can get that going, Vic.
Yeah, I
We're
think they got more storms up north, I think.
Yeah, I try to track everyone's weather. At certain point, I'm like, who even lives here? I don't even know. Some of the places I look at on my phone, I'm not even sure I know somebody who lives there anymore. Lots of dry tinder. Yeah, I love starting fires. I don't know. It's like when it happens, when it all works together and you're like, yes, oh my gosh, science, I scienced. I love starting fires, but it's such a pain in the ass when they don't work and you're just cold and there's snow everywhere. So I'm sorry, Vicky. I wish I could be there to start your fires for you. It is snowing so hard right now. It's ridiculous. And she had like blizzards all week or whatever they're called. My weather is going to be interesting. Snow and ice for about 3 days next week. Yup. I love to see the snow through the window. I would love to see the snow in a greeting card. I live in the high desert in California, so I love to see the snow outside because it doesn't hinder us in any way, but I've definitely romanticized it. Hey, good morning. I thought this was Emmy for a second. My YouTube feed isn't showing you in my live feed. Just happened to open my app and see you were live. Hey, good morning. Good to see you. Our friend Sibling Revelry had a birthday the other day. It was yesterday or the day before. So happy birthday, friend. Made it into the club.
Yeah, I think of Sibling as living in a little boxcar in the middle of a frozen desert.
He does kind of. I think that's pretty good. Yes. They have a show tonight. If you're interested in Sibling Revelry on Rumble. I'm so glad I said that because it makes me think. I'm doing a show on Monday with Daramuth on his Rumble. It's been a while since I was a guest on anyone's show, so I'm nervous because I always feel like I have nothing to talk about. But Daramuth is a good interviewer, so if you guys want to see that, maybe subscribe to my channel and I'll give you guys the alert. If not, find Daramuth somewhere. He might even stream on YouTube as well, but it'll be fun.
I'm still trying to figure out what happened to Darth. When I don't see people, I think the worst. I think of Darth as being stretched out in one of those things where you have to hang on the door because of his back,
Oh
and
no, he's stuck in the inversion table.
his internet's gone out because he's in a blizzard, constantly in a blizzard, and he can't get out of the door because he's the snow has trapped him in.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
what I decided. I decided that since he decided to begin reading his Bible and he wanted to get through it, that we were maybe just a distraction and he's just buckling down, and when he gets to the end, he'll come back.
well, I just tend to always think that the worst has happened. Whoever it is.
Well, I can tell you that he's still alive. He still posts on Twitter. So he's definitely has his phone with him while he's hanging upside down. So, yes, we're going to take off here, though. What's up?
Just try not to be strangers, people, because then we tend to, you know.
Yeah, we'll start writing your eulogies and stuff. So, yeah, if you guys have some free time on your hands tonight, Sibling Revelry puts together a really fun show over on Rumble. And if you're still looking for things to do on Monday evening, Daramuth is going to put together his very best show with his very best guest. That's me.
I was listening. I was listening to Frog before we started, and they had like about I don't know 20 people on panel or something, and there's this
Mm-hmm.
one there's this poor one girl. They were all beaten up on, so I don't know.
Today,
Yeah,
is it that yuck? I actually, I was over there the other day, and that was a shit show. That's actually this was made in honor of arguing with that fool. Like,
Well, it always bothers me when somebody gets picked on. They could be
pick
in the wrong, completely in the wrong, but it's just sad when
see,
everybody piles up on them.
I find that to be so it's a cop out for the lowest common denominator. This chick talks mad shit, joins a panel with a bunch of people that she knows she disagrees with, but if a few of those voices pipe up because they're only one, it's a dog pile. It's like, no, this chick opened her mouth to be devices, called somebody a pedophile, like the worst of the worst, but we're supposed to give this person grace? No, you become fools when you do shit like this. You can't you dust your shoulders off, flip the table, and get out of there because it does nothing for anyone.
I
It
guess I've
was
just always had a weak spot for women.
that's what ma eh how dare you
It's
assume
so
their gender?
it's so it's so condescending, huh?
But a woman is just as capable of handling herself in that situation as anyone else.
Well, I
She
don't know,
put
man.
herself in that situation, she wants that to happen, and she wants the attention that she gets from it, and I find it disgusting, it makes my skin crawl, I'm like, but if
They said
ugh,
she was young, so maybe her brain's not fully developed yet. So what do
she's
you think about
also
that?
a liar, so who can know what's the truth?
Well,
The first maybe 5 hours of that conversation were people were trying even me, I was like, "Hey, these are a lot of
no,
big words, they're trying to
it was
digest
on
them, we
Rumble.
take it easy." But
On
it's
Rumble, Vicky.
on Rumble on Cool Frog's channel. I'm surprised that there's I guess I'm not surprised. It got
Yeah,
very many views, it was
I haven't seen the details, but apparently they're having a Bible study tomorrow. Oh, cool.
hey, good for them. So, yeah, I guess if you also wanna do Bible studying, then you could just find a frog in the pond to do a Bible study. I didn't know they were still doing that.
Well, I don't think they were still. I think it's starting up again. So
Oh, cool.
maybe some good will come of it. I hope so. I pray so.
It definitely will more good will come from that than the mess that they're dealing with trying to get a child to understand any type of nuance when they re-out on the word indoctrination and won't admit to it's just an intellectually devoid conversation. It is just
Well, sometimes a variety of perspective is understandable. For example, am a big proponent of the Confederate flag,
mhm.
and that does not carry a lot of good vibes behind it from most folks. In fact, I had a friend. I counted her as a friend, and when she saw that I was a supporter of the Confederate flag, that was it, man.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so.
Yeah, because how dare you be an individual?
Oh man, it was so triggering for her that how dare I? And I was just the worst thing living. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. You and how much time do you spend trying to convince that person of something
oh,
that they it's pointless, and that's sort of what I'm talking about the other side. It's like you can only shine your light, and if they wanna see it as burning down their house, even though it's not nowhere near them, then they're gonna see it that way. You just kinda gotta keep it moving.
well, it's just like all the other problems in the world. You would hope that communication would help. Sometimes communication initially makes things worse, but whether it's Hamas and Israel or I don't know, communism and Putin and and Ukraine, you just hope that talking something out, it's got to be the better way to go, right?
Yeah, totally. But, I mean, at some point, you might realize you're just talking to a wall, and
Yeah, yeah.
and you like, you can wear yourself out. That is what the adversaries does. It's designed to wear us out. If you've read or seen any of these ways to, like, stop the government from or stop progress, it's play dumb, ask dumb questions, make them explain themselves. That is what's going on over there. It's maddening to me. I'm like, "Holy crap, why are you letting this child dictate what's going on here?" But, uh, uh, the
Well,
views are
sometimes
tasty.
they say sometimes that fences make for good neighbors, and um, that's I think that's the whole purpose behind building the wall. Uh, between us and Mexico, or whether Rome built the Hadrian Wall to keep the Picts out. Um, sometimes walls. It comes down to walls, but
Yeah. I don't think like you can't save everyone, but you could die trying, so good for them.
well, you certainly can't change anyone. I don't think you can try to have an influence, but the change has to come from within, somewhere within.
Biggie said there are probably more Confederate flags in Idaho than the whole South. And Siv said, rebellion is not a geographical region, it's a state of mind, Vicky. Good.
Idaho is pretty remarkable. There where what's his name, Kohlenberger or something like that, where the all that took place. Moscow.
Oh, Koberger, yeah, you're right.
Um,
I
but
was like,
there's I talk about me being a Presbyterian. There's a whole Presbyterian cult up there. Where, kind of wild.
did you say it was a cult?
Yes, ma'am.
Whew.
There's a very conservative, like Vicky says, a Confederate flag waving a Presbyterian cult up there. So kind of wild.
We did a show on what makes a cult a cult. I guess anybody can kind of, depending on how you operate, you could sort of be cultish. All right, Squabble, I think we're done here today. We made it for an hour and a half. Like I said, I got the SCREWTAPE letters out of my system. I relayed the information into the void where I feel like it belongs. And I got to hang out with you. Happy birthday to you. You also had a birthday this week.
I'm 68.
Wow.
68th birthday.
That is awesome. We are so glad that you're still kicking. I, for one, am still glad you're still kicking. I know 68, it sounds young, but once you get to the 60s, I'm like, wow, he made it. Damn.
Yeah. I feel like I could go anytime and had a good life. So a pretty good run at it,
So, yeah, that's a good way to feel. Like that's a good peace of mind to have. I also feel the same way, and I'm only 40 something, 43. Sips,
Thank you, Chat.
yes. Happy birthday. And both you and Sib having birthdays this week.
You can send money to
Send money to your local charity, or unless Squabble needs it.
No, me. Yeah,
Send it to your local bird sanctuary.
there you go.
All right, guys, we're gonna hit the end here. It's gonna end with a song that will probably just eat me off YouTube, and then it'll close down. So we'll see you next week. I'm sure it'll be something interesting. I'll try to make it less political, less booky, and more Bible-y. Squab, if you have ideas, shoot them my way.
Remember Valentine's Day is coming up. I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day, but I do celebrate love. So
Aw, yes.
spread the love.
Valentine's Day is next Friday, so right, spread the love. Take it easy, guys, and we'll